Verbs are the words that really get stuff done. And I'm not just saying that because verbs are words that describe actions. As a writer, verbs represent one of the best ways to add variety to your prose. When it comes to nouns and objects, you are pretty well limited in the choices you have. After you name a character, calling them something else midway through the novel really doesn't work. Names tend to inconveniently stick to the nouns that we give them to. But with verbs, the sky's the limit. There's untold variety and nearly endless possibilities. But among all of those possibilities, there are possibly some possibilities that you possibly may want to avoid, for it's quite possible for a particular set of verbs to damage your prose irreparably. These are the dreaded to-be verbs. That's right beside the 1A verbs and just before the 3C verbs lies a group of verbs that can turn your prose from A-OK to B-A-D bad. These are the to-be verbs. To-be verbs include verbs like am, is, are, was, were, been, and being. These verbs describe information about a subject, assign attributes to a subject, or describe something that is happening to the subject. Horatio is the ambassador to Minnesota. The cat's purring is interfering with my audio. To-be verbs can also describe when something happened. Horatio was kicked by a donkey implies that the event happened in the past, whereas a donkey is kicking Horatio implies it's happening right now. Both of those examples use to-be verbs. Now, any novel, even one that is well written, will feature some to-be verbs. They are an inescapable part of writing. I mean, they even manage to worm their way into that last sentence. Those things are everywhere. This video is being overrun by them. We were warned about this, but I was too busy being ensnared by my own hubris, and now I am realizing that it may be too late to get rid of the to-be verbs. To-be verbs by themselves are not necessarily bad. From a grammatical standpoint, they're okay, but overuse of them can indicate some different problems in your writing. For one thing, to-be verbs are harbingers of the dreaded passive voice. Passive voice is the inversion of subject and object within a sentence. Instead of describing what the subject did to the object, you describe what happened to the object from the subject. Horatio was kicked by a donkey instead of a donkey kicked Horatio. Active voice is much more engaging, it requires less words, and unless you have a reason to switch to passive voice, active is usually better. You will also see problems if you use a lot of there are and that constructs within your writing, which often require adding in a to-be verb that doesn't need to be there. There were a lot of donkeys that were angry at Horatio. In this kind of example, you're using a lot more words and the writing is more vague because we're using that there was and that structure. Much better to say something like Horatio angered a lot of donkeys, or even Horatio made the donkeys furious. The donkey's blood boiled at Horatio. The sight of Horatio alone made the donkey's blood boil. You'll also sometimes see there was or there is when describing a scene or an element in that scene. There was an angry donkey that was on the ambassador's doorstep, versus something like an angry donkey waited at the ambassador's door. These constructs are needlessly verbose and can be switched to something more dynamic and clearer. To-be verbs can also be a sign that your writing is becoming a bit telly and that you aren't showing information to the reader. When you use a to-be verb, you're ascribing some sort of abstract quality to a character or story element, rather than letting the reader see those things through more sensory and descriptive scenes. This makes writing less concrete, less grounded, and on some level, less emotionally engaging. Horatio was really good at tennis. When you write a sentence like that, you're quite literally telling the reader something that is true. Conventional wisdom states that it's much better to show Horatio nailing a serve or demonstrating a powerful backhand rather than just telling the reader how good Horatio is at tennis. Of course, the main advantage of to-be verbs in this case is their precision and their brevity. It takes a lot longer to write a scene showing somebody being good at tennis, and we can be a lot more specific if we just say that they're good at tennis. There's no opportunity for the reader to misinterpret what happens in that scene or to get some sort of conclusion that isn't what we want the reader to come away with from that scene. So in general, the best way to let the reader know that Horatio is good at tennis is to write a scene that demonstrates this, unless you really need to get the information across quickly, in which case you can use a to be verb to let the reader know how good Horatio is at tennis. Of course, he stopped being good at tennis after the incident with the donkeys. Speaking of incidents with donkeys, that doesn't work as a transition to the conclusion. So can to be verbs really be the end of your novel? Maybe. If nothing else, using them a lot can indicate you have repetitive structures within your writing, and moving away from the to be verbs can inject a little variety. Just like this video provided some variety to distract you while you were injected with mind control serum. Wait, did I say that out loud? Doesn't matter. The serum's been injected. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.